And just like that, we are back with another amazing episode of HBCU Her Voice. It's no secret. It's one of my favorite places to be. Why? Because we have women that bring the heat, the knowledge, and we do it in our style, our way. And we have really powerful conversations. And of course, today is no different. Wait a minute. I'm your fabulous host, Shanaja Washington, streaming from the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And I'm so happy that you are here today. Me and my guests already been laughing it up and chopping it up before we even got on here. So I know it's going to be a good episode with good energy. We're not going to waste any more time. We're going to bring her to the stage so you can tell us her name, which HBCU she's repping, whoop, whoop, and where she's streaming from. And without any further waiting time, here's our amazing guest.
Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Kissonda Williams. I am representing the real HU, Howard University, and I'm coming to you live from Livonia, Michigan. I was raised in Detroit. I'm staying here right now with my mom, so she's in Livonia. All the same difference. So a little bit about me. Uh, I'm a graduate of Howard University, my first love. I have two master's degrees. I've been an educator for the last 21 years. I am a mom of three fabulous kids, ages 12, 9, and 6. And I always tell everyone, since I'm a math teacher, I love that they're like in multiples of three right now. But that's just me nerding out. Okay, let me bring it back. So what else about me? I started out at Howard as a finance major. I worked for on Wall Street for about 2 years. I left there and I actually did recruiting. So I was headhunting for other financial firms, given my background as a financial analyst. And then I decided I wanted to do something a little different. And it's funny because it's always been something that's been a passion of mine, and that was teaching. And even when I worked on Wall Street, like I trained all the new analysts who came into our department. I did a lot of the mentoring work that our company did with our nearby universities. So it's always been something that was in me. And even when I came back home one time, my mom had some keepsakes and I was going through it. And I recalled as a first grader, I was doing this paper and I remember running to my parents, asking them questions. And so it was about my family, and my mom and my dad and all these things. And at the end of it, 6 or 7 years old, I actually wrote, I want to be a teacher. And so here I am, 21 years later, in teaching. And it's been a fabulous career. So that's me. I did not obviously get my teaching degrees from Howard University. So I also represent, though they're not HBCUs, I went to Pace University in New York, as well as Bank Street College. And that's where I received my master's in leadership in education with a concentration in mathematics. So, I've been doing a lot of work in Brooklyn. And over time, what I found my niche to be, or what I become to find myself loving and enjoying, was supporting new teachers. And so, with that, I am in the process of setting up an online coaching business that supports new middle school math teachers in our classrooms. And so, again, that's a real passion for me because I find that in education, unlike many other professions, we tend to put the least experienced people into the most high pressure positions. And so, by saying that, what I mean is, usually the children who need the most care, the most attention. And I don't mean that to say that all of our babies don't need, but in terms of their academic background and their prowess at that given time, we tend to put the new teachers with the kids who need the most support. And for that, you need the most experienced people in the classroom with them. And it tends to be just the opposite. The children who kind of have more of a knack for the things that they do, academically speaking, tend to get the teachers who have the most experience. And really, that's a good training ground for teachers who are brand new. And so it gives them an opportunity to be able to focus more on their curriculum and develop their pedagogy as well as the classroom management, all the things, right? So that's where I'm kind of bridging the gap. You know, I can't change or control who gets assigned to what classroom and all those types of things, but knowing what I know about where new teachers typically go, and the fact, of course, that they're new, my job is to come in and support them, moving them from theory to practice, right? So making sure that they have a firm understanding, or develop rather, a firm understanding of the curriculum that they're instructing, the importance of classroom management, setting up routines and procedures, developing engaging lessons, all of these things that tend to in education be buzzwords, but they're real. And definitely, given my background in finance, I do a lot of work around data instruction and how that informs what you do for the students in front of you. So, for those of you who are not educators, just putting it out there, it takes a lot of work. Just for any other profession, it's a craft, right? And so, to help people hone their craft and not just to take it merely as their calling, because we're not out here playing superhero with people's kids, we're making sure that we're really doing the work to make sure that we're differentiating and that everyone is getting what they need where they are, and achieving in as best possible for where they're starting from, right? If you're 3 years behind, I'm not going to catch you up on that in 1 year. But doesn't mean that your child or your student shouldn't be able to show growth. So those are the types of things that I focus on with our new teachers, and I love it. I could sit here all day about it. But so that's one aspect of me. Like I said, I'm also a mom. And then I like just doing what I like to do, right? I like to cook. Um, I like to sing. I like to dance. And then lately, I've been focusing a lot on my own health and wellness journey. So I'm like 14 pounds down in fat. I'm picking up the kickboxing, the yoga, the kettlebell classes. The summer's been a little bit different with the kids home with me, so they go out walking with me. And we try to do that at least 5 days a week, and that's been extremely helpful, not only for me, but for them and for developing good habits, right? Because it's more than about telling you what to do, but it's also exemplifying how to do it and why. And so changing eating habits. And so all of those things are coming into place slowly but surely, along with just working on my own spiritual and mental health. And so I'm going to say, there's nothing wrong with prayers. There's nothing wrong with having your spirituality or your religion as your background, but God invented therapists too, right? And so this is my first year fully in therapy, and it's been a godsend of being able to share my thoughts, my feelings, and to be able to learn some strategies to support myself along the way. So that's me.
But you gave it to us real education style. Doesn't she sound like? Doesn't she sound like the educator in the classroom? I say, look at this teacher before our eyes over here doing the thing. I love it, and I've been so much connection with educators. Look at she
It's
thinks
in me.
I'm in I'm in contact with so many educators, and that level of support is something that's definitely needed,
Mhm.
especially when they're coming like fresh off their education. And we all know these kids built a little different now than how we were built. So the fact that you're focusing on that foundation support is so important, because I think that can actually make or break their career as a teacher. If I know how to come in there, stand my ground, know how to navigate, my curriculum, everything, I am more inclined to have a successful not only school a year, but just a career as a whole.
Right.
Now, before you, I know Kissonda has said all these things. I mean, she said some amazing things. She said she was working on Wall Street and then transitioned to the teacher space. That's amazing in itself. But from researching you, Kissonda, you have gone through just challenges as a woman, not even as it relates to the teacher space or the finance space. You shared
Mhm.
something with us about leaving a lengthy relationship,
Mhm.
and that being something that took a lot.
Mhm.
In fact, we think over a decade, almost a decade and a half.
Right.
I want you to talk about that transition in the best way that is comfortable for you, because
Mhm.
so many women stay, right?
Mhm.
So many women stay in relationships for so long, they
Mhm.
don't know how to get out or when is the cue for them to go. I want you to
Mhm.
talk about that long relationship and what were
Mhm.
those cues to finally leave.
Thanks, Shanadra. So, 16 years. Um, and you have to know and be willing to accept and say when enough is enough. And so for me, in retrospect, there are a whole lot of conversations that go on in my head, right? Oh, you should have left when done. You should have left here. You should have left here. There were some red flags, right? But I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt, or maybe it's not so bad, or maybe it's just that other person and it's not me, and all these things, right? So you start developing all the excuses around why you're going to make yourself act as though you didn't see and hear what you heard and what you saw. And so for me, while, like I said, while there were a lot of signs here and there along the way, what my what I'm saying is my last fight, it's been almost a year to date, almost. That last fight, and I'm sorry, I don't typically do all those filler talks, but I think it's a little touchy, but I can get through it. The last thing was in not being supported. And I think we had come to a point where it was very obvious that we had grown apart. I was in need of more challenging things professionally. And so I found a business coach and started working on setting up my own educational consulting business. And in the midst of that, there were a lot of good things that were going on. Um, I was in a mastermind cohort, so I was around other like minded women. And that was great. In the midst of that, I was also learning how to drive. Whole nother story. Um, but at this particular point in time, I got that, got a new car. And so there was like this whole other level of independence that I was able to develop. And in the midst of all of that, there was a lot of jealousy that presented itself. And so, how do I know that, right? First and foremost, when someone is drinking and they're drinking in excess, that truth serum that they're drinking, it comes out and it comes out in a very negative and nasty way. Having the police called on me, having someone trying to knock me down the stairs, and me defending myself on the stairs, brandishing a knife, and then me going to get 3 extra knives to combat the one that I see. All starting, of course, not just out of this one thing. I'm sure it was a culmination of things, but my request of my partner was to support me as I was going to set up and just go full fledged into my consulting business. And so that I would need some financial support. I was like, give me 6 to 9 months with that. And it started out with, okay, that's cool, not a problem. And somewhere there became this shift of, you need to show me financial statements. Where are you spending your money? Now, mind you, this is after I've been the one holding things down financially from the rooter to the tutor for 14 years. And I told you, a 16-year relationship. I'm going to dial it back a little bit. We lived together, I think, 11 years. And so I think at that point, maybe 2 of the years he was paying the rent, but I was paying everything else. And prior to those last 2 years, I was paying everything. So to ask the question of where my money was going, well, it takes money to make money. So I had to spend money to try to get my business up off the ground. And living in New York is not cheap. And setting up your business in New York is not cheap. Hiring a business coach is not cheap, so it's not money wasted, it's money invested. And when you have a partner who doesn't align with you in that way of thinking and begins to try to hold things over your head and begins to accuse you, not of going on a business trip, but of going out essentially to purchase being with someone else. Uh, yeah, you heard me. I'm not going out buying male prostitutes. Um, yeah, I think those were more than enough signs. And remember, all of this is in the midst of my 3 kids watching and listening.
Mm. Thank you for that vulnerability, because I was just sitting here almost visualizing your story, like in the way that you told it. And there were a couple things in there that literally gave me hair raises, because to know that you've had to go through that, it's definitely heartbreaking to me. But to
Mhm.
see you in this light and be sitting here with me, and like, old folks say, I don't look like what I've been through.
Mhm.
And that's what I get immediately from seeing your face, seeing your smile, and just really embodying your energy here for the past 20 minutes. So thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that, because so many of our viewers, although we talk about a lot of things, business and a lot of things, career, there are
Yeah.
these back end stories that really bring the transformation and change to people.
Mhm.
So if
Yeah.
we have spaces where we can share these that reach beyond just this career piece or business piece, I
Yeah.
think that's where we're making the real connections, right? And the shifts for change.
Yeah.
Go here and talking about moving past fear. I know that this has been a thing for you. Fear tries to come up for me sometimes too, but I try to combat it, particularly around women that are close to the 40s or in the 40 space. Because like right now, I feel like it's do or die. Okay,
Mhm.
baby, what else you need at this age to make the choice? You didn't reach 40, you're mid age, middle age.
Yeah.
Talk about moving past fear, and then I really hone in it from a lady that may be approaching her 40s or already in the 40s and still battling with fear.
Mhm. Um, I think realistically, and again, I can only speak from my own point of view, right? I'm not going to act as though, like you said, Sinead, I'm not going to act like fear doesn't exist, and that it doesn't come up, and that I don't still have my challenges with operating in fear. But I think that's just it, though, that you can have the feeling and still move. The problem becomes when you feel it and you let it stifle you. And have I been there? Have I let it completely stop me, just seize me altogether? Absolutely, I have. Um, but particularly because I'm 47, for women in your 40s, right? Typically, you have some career path or whatever your job is, like you've been in it for a number of years. And so you have your regimen set. Whether you have children or not, you just know, or you have a better sense of what's for you, what's not for you, what you like, what you don't like. And even if you're still coming to discover some of those things, right? Because you're still alive. And so you're still discovering, you're still learning. And that's cool. But what I think begins to happen to a lot of us is that you're seen as, and particularly for Black women, you're strong, right? And it's not that you're not, but the way in which that is used is almost weaponizing, because it's like, well, no matter what happens to you, you can and should just take it and accept it because you can. You don't let anybody see you sweat. You don't let, the worries cast you or what have you. You just keep going. And it's that mentality of, and I'm guilty of it. I'm real good at putting my head down and trudging through. Hit a checklist, done, 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 and keep it moving. And in a sense, that's a way to combat the fears because you don't have to feel anything when you're just simply moving. It's when you have to stop and actually think and put yourself in a space of silence and reflection. That's where the fears come in because you give yourself the opportunity to imagine all the possibilities. And then I think we take ourselves so far out that you scare yourself from even just taking a baby step forward. And so, to my fellow sisters, like she said, especially us who are in our 40s, we come from a different background. A lot of my friends my age are just now admitting to some of the things they saw and heard in their upbringing. And so, it's not to sit here to play any blame games at all. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge who you are, where you are, and where you want to go. And at the end of the day, you have to understand and know and then act upon the fact that nothing's going to change until you make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And you said something I really liked. I mean, you said that you can feel the fear, but you still have to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when people just feel the fear, it is definitely a stop. It's a
Mm-hmm.
blocker. They can't move past that feeling. So that's something that I cultivate. Like, okay, we know you're scared, but you still got to shoot. Okay, you still have to take that action to shoot. So thank you for that. It's really, really sound advice because this is the time in your life where hopefully you're still kind of in that crux or still wanting to bang it out and go.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect time to claim the space. I want to talk about this quickly before we kind of touch back on the consulting business. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to talk about giving yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are. I get this from you that you are a person who's had to walk that piece out. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
me about what giving grace looks like when you're giving it to yourself.
Mm. Good question. Like you said, it's something, it's still a work in progress. I'm not gonna act like it's not. Because this last year has put me in that space. Giving yourself grace, at least for me, is stop the self negative talk, stop the bashing, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I should have done this. I could have done that. Well, if I had only, I should have. Water under the bridge. What you did was the best of what you knew to do in the moment. Even if you feel like, no, I knew better, but you didn't do better. So if you didn't act on it, then there was something there that prevented you from moving forward. So for me right now, giving grace is literally, first of all, like now allowing myself to acknowledge that that's how I feel at times. I should have seen. I should have moved when. I should have left then. Because I can't act like I don't feel that way sometimes. But then once that's out, right? Once I have that in the open for myself, then I have to say, okay, that was then. This is now. Then you saw things that you ignored. So what are we going to do differently now? And I think a lot of that has to now do with setting boundaries. And I used to look at setting boundaries as something that was for the other person, right? Here are my gates. These are the things that keep me safe, and you need to respect it. They're for me. They're for ourselves. This is where I stand. This is how I feel. If you're with it, great. If you're not, great. That doesn't change where I stand or how I stand. So if this is too much for you to handle, there's the door. If it's not too much for you to handle, thank you for the respect and we can move along. So having boundaries, and I did a piece where I likened it unto the marriage vows, right? essentially, we have our to have and to hold. And for me, it's like with the boundaries, you have them, you hold them, right? You keep them, you maintain them. But then you really have to do the work of maintaining it. So it's not enough to just say, these are my values, these are my boundaries, my no is my no. That sounds great. But then when it comes time to act on it, you have to actually pursue it in the moment and not be afraid. It doesn't mean you have to be nasty about it, but you can't be afraid to speak back to someone who's not respecting it either, and letting them know what it is they've done, where you stand. And if you can't respect this, then we can't move forward any longer. And I think in my case, I let that go. I let
Those boundaries, they can be tricky. I mean, especially if you've grown up and not known boundaries, and many of us, especially as women of color, boundaries can sometimes be tough for us because
Mhm,
sometimes when we set the boundaries, we're seen a certain way
mhm,
rather quicker than
mhm,
people of other groups. She's angry now, or she thinks she's
mhm,
better than.
mhm,
Those kind of things come out of setting boundaries. So.
mhm.
I want to thank you for talking about boundaries. It is still something in my walk that I'm working on, and I will say that it gets tricky for me even now with all the multiple things and saying even putting up a boundary of no, I can't show up or no, I can't be there. But these are the boundaries that I need to protect my peace and really, really just even have some fuel, Kissonda, because I be tired, big tired. To even to even keep going and doing the things that I'm passionate about doing. I want to
Absolutely.
switch back to the consulting business. I want to make sure that people get this piece. So,
Mhm.
just tell us a little bit about how those services are designed to work. Are these like virtual services? Do people get the opportunity to work with you like on a one-on-one session? Is it a 6-month program? Just talk us a little bit about how these services are positioned to help these teachers in the classroom.
So thanks for that, Shanadra. So actually, I'm still revamping it because when I left out of my relationship, I literally moved cross country, and and so I had to put it down for a moment and literally really kind of get my head space together. Um, as I'm picking it back up, I'm changing it such that it's an online service to be able to support. And I'm Elite Experience Consulting, and it'll be a 12-week program. Um, and I'm supporting teachers again through various aspects of core components to structuring their classroom. So we're looking at setting expectations, lesson planning, instructional positioning, time management, and engagement. And so each one of those go along with the acronym ELITE, which is again the name of the business. And so you can receive online support services right now, and it can be in small group. Again, as I'm redesigning it, I can start one on one, but the idea is to be able to grow it to work in a cohort of, I would say, no more than 6, because I really want to make it a tailored and personalized program, because I'm really passionate about making sure that people are in the classroom making, as best they can, the best decisions for the students who are in front of them, and understanding how you utilize all these components that you're responsible for as a teacher to not so much just make your life easier as a teacher. What makes your life simpler is that your students are learning. And so, how do you know that? And how do you measure that? And when they're not, then what do you do next? And how do you support and serve? And a lot of people think that it's going in, it's receiving a script, it's receiving a pre written curriculum, and you just read from it, you do exactly what it says, and it's an end all be all. If that were so easy, then we wouldn't have the types of problems that we have now in our classrooms, particularly on an academic aspect, in terms of students being so far behind where they are in reading and in mathematics. So it's more to it than just a script being handed to you, because there are a lot of curriculum development programs and designers and writers and books and all these things that exist out there. But again, if it was a one size fit all, then everybody would be okay, right? And so we're not. And people still are trying to rely off of, well, the pandemic did this, the pandemic. A lot of things happened during the pandemic, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to keep it real from my perspective. The gaps that were shown, academically speaking, were already there. We were just put in a position where we now had to force ourselves to ramp up and really be able to utilize technology to support students, and not in a way that was cute to look at in a classroom, but to really now actually be able to instruct without being in person and still maintain the integrity of what you were teaching.
Yeah, I love the touch point that you made to COVID, because like it's like, baby, the problem was already there. Like COVID may have, shine some more light on it,
Mhm.
and, maybe even heightened a little bit, if you will. Like, yeah, it
Right.
added to it, but it had to be a problem already that's added. It
Right.
just didn't come out of the air when COVID came.
Absolutely
So
didn't.
definitely, yeah, good on touching that, because there was definitely before that. Like I said, my son, he's 7, and before
Mhm.
COVID even happened, I first had him back in 2017. I was
Mhm.
already researching stuff just about the environment and landscape of education in our country.
Mhm.
And trust
Mhm.
me, as somebody who will research and look, it was definitely big
Mhm.
problems
Yep.
before the pandemic, just to say that.
Yep.
So, how can they connect with you and find you, Kissonda, whether it's your website, your socials? Please let us know so our viewers can hear.
So on social media, my Facebook is Kissonda Williams. Instagram is Kissy Williams. So KISSYWMS. Um, and by email, you can reach me at EEC@eliteexperienceconsulting.com. So those are my major handles right now.
I love it. Thank you. We will definitely link those in the episode.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank you so much for coming and sharing this space with me. It's been such a beautiful experience, and I love hearing your story. And I see the resilience, and I am definitely speaking and declaring over Kissonda that these things come to pass. Come to pass, excuse me, your consulting business, because we know that that's needed. And then even
Yes.
this journey in space of healing that you're doing, working
Mhm.
away from the relationship, working away into this new space, that I pray that you continue to own, if that makes sense. I want to cue here for your final thoughts, Cassandra. This is a place where you just give really a brief synopsis. If anybody was to see this and they heard nothing else from Cassandra in this time and this space, what would you say?
A few things. One more thing that I didn't add in, and I'm going to put it in here, is that I also have my story coming out in short form in an anthology that'll be coming out in November of this year, called I Almost Made It, But God, Volume 2. And so my final thoughts, generally speaking, are for my ladies, and men. There are men who go through situations as well. But from one woman to another, you know what you know when you know it. You know when it's time to go. Your mind knows. Your heart tells you to stay. Your mind knows. And we ignore it. And so, but at the same time, you'll turn around and kiki with your girlfriend, oh, he's this, oh, he's that. He's getting on my nerves. It's this, it's that. You know, we all can vent. We're allowed that. But if you're really interested in change, the change that you need to amplify your life, you got to move. You have to leave. Whatever that is for you, whenever it is for you, whatever those red flags are, nobody can tell you when you're tired of it but you. You can acknowledge it all you want. You can claim that you're tired of it as much as you want, but you're not really tired until you make a move to make a change. You focus it on all other aspects of your life. You do it for all the other people in your life. And if you saw your loved one, even just your good girlfriend, right? She's one of your loved ones, and somebody messing over her, the way that it's happening for you, even though you may or may not really be telling the full story, you know you'd be the first one on Front Street to take care of your friend, to take care of your sister, to take care of your cousin, your niece, whoever it is. You have to be selfish enough to be able to stand in the way to do the same thing for yourself.
Powerful, powerful, because sometimes we can see all this stuff for other people and we can figure it out, we can connect the dots, but when it comes to us and our own personal stuff, we'll just sit there and waddle in
Mhm,
it. So yeah, take
mhm.
that level of introspection and bring it here so
Yep.
that you can make the move that you need. Because to be honest, it's great to help people along their journey and and help diagnose them, if you will. But
Mhm.
when it's all said and done, you are responsible for your time in this space. And I can't
Absolutely.
stress that enough. I want to thank you so much, Kissonda, for being here. This was a fabulous episode. HBCU Her Voice is the place to be. We tell these stories in such an organic way, and our guests, they be fire. Hey, look, I can't lie about it. They just be fire like that. But until next time, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And we'll be back next time with another amazing guest.